One thing I would ask him is, when you're chipping, do you look at a spot or do you not look at a
That's
spot?
perfect. Oh my God, that's perfect.
I actually want to know.
I'm
So for those of you who don't, I'll tweet this out.
We'll pull it. No, we'll pull it up and put it.
This is the Tournament Code.
Alrighty, Cooper, we are here. It's a new episode of the Tournament Code, and it's a little different than normal because it's just you and me, and we're going to be doing a little bit of a year-end recap. We've done a lot of episodes of the Tournament Code. We've done 80 episodes since our beginning, and we think now would be kind of a good time to do a recap, let people into what we're thinking, because, we've talked to 80 people. We're potentially the only people who've listened to every single episode. And for us, we've listened to every single one multiple times between recording it, editing it, etc. And so there's a lot of takeaways that we got, and hopefully we can condense them down here for our listeners. So I think let's just kind of start from the beginning. And by the way, if you don't like this style of episode, if you hate this style of episode, please leave us a 5-star review and like and subscribe. That way we know not to do it again. And similarly, if you really hate it, if you're seeing us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up if you hate it. That it's opposite day to day, and we need to make sure that that is implemented. So getting past that, I think, Cooper, you and I play a lot of golf, and I'm going to quickly give everyone a background. You've kind of heard us maybe talk about it, and I'll just give people the quick rundown. Cooper played at Morehead State, which is a D1 school in Kentucky. He played there for 5 years, went and played on mini tours for about 6 months, realized it wasn't for him, ended up getting his amateur status back. This summer, I caddied for him in a few events. He just missed out on qualifying for the US Am. He just missed out on qualifying for the US Mid-Am. And so Cooper can play some pretty good golf. And when he was at Morehead State, he was one of the best golfers in that conference. Myself, I played at Belmont. I was there for about a year and a half, had a stress fracture of the hand. Golf game went downhill, had a few more stress fractures on top of that. And so after about a year and a half, I called it quits, didn't pick my golf clubs back up until my third year of law school, and started playing more.
You couldn't put it on your resume that you were a collegiate golfer if you were going to suck.
That is true. That is true. You can't say that. Then all of a sudden they invite you out to play golf and you stink. So played a lot more. So just as a reminder for everyone, our background, this is where we're coming at it from. We're not just at least two complete patsies who know nothing about golf. And so a lot of the stuff that we talked about this year with guests were things that we learned and we had a lot of things that our minds changed on. So without any more hemming and hawing, let's kind of start, Cooper, with the big thing. Tell us the thing that changed your mind the most.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that stood out to me was from the James Sieckmann episode. We were talking about chipping. That guy is an absolute short game wizard, and he changed my mind on something because for the past around year and a half, maybe 2 years, I've been trying to hit draws with my chip shots because I had a golf lesson a few years ago where the instructor, who's a really good instructor, told me I needed to be in and out on all my chip shots, in and out, in and out, in and out. I need to hit like high draws. He said I need to always try to be focused on feeling high draw on every single short game shot. And Sieckmann was opposite of this. He was saying that most players, he analyzed all these really good players, and a lot of them have cut shot patterns. And it kind of made me think, well, like, why do I try to hit high draws on every single chip shot? Well, it's probably just because this one guy told me that. And it's okay that worked. That works most of the time. But it just was a good reminder to not be so rigid in a swing thought or a short game thought, or really any thought on the course in that matter.
And that instructor you're talking about, for context for people, if it's the one I'm thinking about, that's a great, as Cooper said, not just a great instructor, he's a top 50 instructor in the world, I'm pretty sure.
Coaches major champions.
Yeah.
PGA Tour
really
players.
Mm-hmm.
Knows his stuff. Worked under some really good really good instructors. And, it could have just been because I had the one lesson with him only. And he, if we worked together more and more, he might have not been as rigid in that. But it's just always good to have a reminder that more than one thing can work.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. For me, I'm going to go with episode 62, Marty Jurtson. So if you remember, I think episode 25 was Scott Fawcett. We talked a lot about curving the ball one way. And that's something I believe in and did believe in prior. And so, I mean, Scott's a great guy, super charismatic, and what he says makes sense. And so I'd seen Marty post on Twitter about curving the ball both ways. And I was like, what is Marty getting at? Like, Marty's not an idiot. He's a really smart guy. I've met him before. I'm sure he's got something, like some reason for this. He doesn't just have something without any substantiation. So we had him on. If you haven't listened to 62, listen to it. And essentially what Marty said is, in a vacuum, it's correct that a draw and a fade really aren't any different for the most part. Like your shot pattern with the draw is going to be your farthest ones left are going to be the longest usually, and your shortest ones are going to be on the right. So it's going to be this pattern. I'm trying to figure out how to describe it on my end, but essentially long left, short right is what your pattern's going to look like with the draw. And similarly with a fade, your short ones are going to be on the right usually, and your long ones are going to be on the left. So as an overall shot pattern, it's going to look the same. And so if you transpose that onto a green, yeah, there's no difference at all really between them.
A good way to think about this is because I remember we got into not an argument, but a long discussion about, think about hole 12 at Augusta. Sunday pin, would you rather be lefty or righty? And you were saying, well, it doesn't really matter if you're lefty or righty because your dispersion is going to be the same. But I think that when you're just simply looking at a dispersion chart, you don't realize what Marty was saying exactly right there.
And what Marty got at, is Cooper's alluding to, is, yeah, all things being equal, dispersion patterns look the same. But that's just essentially where the ball is carrying. But when you take the hard greens into account, so on essentially PGA Tour level courses where the greens are hard, that ball is landing and rolling usually a pretty decent distance. And because of that rolling, it makes it so that if you're hitting a cut to a right pin or a draw to a left pin, then the ball is going to get closer potentially. And in fact, for players that are good at doing that, can help them gain strokes. And one of the stats he gave is Justin Thomas hits an average number of greens in regulation, but gains more strokes than almost anybody, at least when he was playing better with strokes gained approach, because he's cutting it to the right pins and drawing to the left pins. My takeaway from that was not that I should learn to work it both ways. In fact, my takeaway was pretty much the same as it's been, which is I'm probably going to hit it the same way most of the time. But if you want to be a top 5, top 10 striker in the world, you have to curve it both ways. So that was a big one. That was a really big one for me, and was super interesting to talk with Marty about that. Cooper, you got a category?
Out of all the episodes that we've had, what was your favorite one?
Oh man. Oh gosh. I'm not going to give the cheesy answer that
Scott Fawcett.
Everyone gives, which is, no, that's not the cheesy answers. Oh, they're all my favorite. I can't decide. And they're not, I mean, we had a bunch of great guests on, and so it is hard to make a decision because each one taught us something for sure. I think both of us came away, even for ones we weren't expecting. I think Scott Fawcett's an easy one to go to because he's such an interesting character, and interacting with him like off camera, out of recording, a super, like even outside of that, super nice guy. He really is just a golf nut and cares about golf and wants people to do it. We talked with him for decent, like that podcast was an hour and a half, I think, that we recorded, and we still talked with him for another half an hour afterwards, just about golf stuff, asking questions, etc. I'm going to go with a Kentucky boy here, Jesse Mudd. Jesse Mudd was a super fun one. If you haven't listened to him, he's the coach at Lamar University, and his story is essentially this. was the best junior golfer in the country, committed to Florida, and then had some injuries, had some mental, like I wouldn't call it lapse, but just struggled and never really got his game back. And he worked with Gio Valiente a ton, never got his game back, but it has gone on to become a really, not just a good coach, but he's a great guy, super interesting to talk to. And he can, as he said, I can explain to players, hey, I've been there. You're the best player in the world? Yep, been there. You're the worst player in the world? Yep, I've been there. I've been in both spots. And so I thought that was super cool to hear his story of ups and downs. How about you, Coop?
So my favorite episode was with a guy that we did a while back. His name is Rob Labritz. He's currently on the Champions Tour. He was a lifelong head professional. He has actually a really inspirational story. He talks about working just probably like 10, 12-hour days his entire career as a club pro with always having the dream of making the Champions Tour when he turned 50. He would wake up, work out, go work, take a lunch break, hit balls, go work some more, and then after he got done working at the club, he would go play or practice or do whatever he needed to do. And he had a lot of success doing that. He played in multiple PGA championships, made the cut in a few PGA championships, and just always kept at it. And as soon as he turned 50, he signed up for PGA Tour Champions Q School. And he got through that first year, and now he's playing on the tour. And I mean, it's just a really cool story. I reached out to him because I had seen his story on Golf Channel or Twitter or something. And I was just really happy that he came on, and is still one of my favorite episodes. Probably my favorite episode, honestly.
Yeah, that was a really good one. I mean, if I remember right too, I think he had a tough childhood, and then he went to college and dropped out of college and became a club pro. It wasn't just like all straight to the top or anything like that. It was a super.
I mean, he's been through a divorce. He was very open with that on the podcast, and he's going to tell you it's not easy, but he's a testament that if you want something, you can go get it.
That's the truth. Let's do next one. The best. I think we kind of hit that one with Seekman, but see if you got another one. Your best or biggest game improvement tip that you got from one of these things, because we listen to these guests, but
biggest game improvement. Let me think about that for a little while.
I'll go first then if you want to hold off then. So we obviously had a lot of great guests on. I've just been floored by all the people we've had on in every facet. I think one of the ones is that we talked to that's more recent that had something that was pretty game improvement. We kind of talked about on here. There's also another video out there, but I think Greg Rose talking about how ground forces work, and specifically how it works with how you can practice good ground reaction forces with a chair. That one to me is probably the biggest mind changer that I had, or game changer I had, as far as actually understanding that. So I'm going to quickly give you a rundown. I kind of said it wrong in that episode, how it works, but it's pretty darn close. Essentially, you take a chair like I'm sitting in, an office chair, and you take whatever foot you would push off of when you're swinging. So if you're righty, your left foot; if you're a lefty, your right foot. And if you want to feel what proper ground reaction forces look like with that foot, push back as hard as you can and try to turn only 180 degrees while doing that. And so essentially you should fly back 10, 15, 20 feet, however far it is, depending on a few different factors, and end up facing the way you push. But again, only turning 180 degrees. And that one was like, I always thought, I'm supposed to be jumping up. I'm supposed to be like pushing that left foot up. And I'm a guy who can jump pretty high. I was like, why can't I hit the ball farther? And then once I understood that, it made sense as to not just using the ground properly and how that helps speed, but also how that helps the body rotate around. Because if you're just pushing up, it's rotating around, especially with the pelvis, is a little harder. How about you, Coop?
I'm going to go with one that's a little less technical, but it's a good way to think about things. And this comes from a guest that we were very lucky to have on the podcast, Dr. Mo Pickens. And he's big into process. He's big into routines. And the way he talks about your pre-shot routine is that once you start your pre-shot routine, you shouldn't even have to think about taking the club back. You should be so ingrained in you that taking the club back just happens. And I think if you can really get to that point with your pre-shot routine, it's hard to do, but it's extremely helpful to get to that point.
Yeah, and that made me think of another one that I don't know where it falls into, but another big game changer this year for me was Ralph Bauer with his tour read system. Cooper can attest to this. So the quick rundown on this is, I wouldn't call it like Aimpoint, but essentially, as opposed to using fingers, etc., and arm length to estimate the spot, tour read helps you do the exact math on where a putt should be. And you might use Aimpoint right now and you say, hey, I think Aimpoint's good enough, and maybe it is good enough for you. When I switched from Aimpoint to tour read, I had a significant improvement in my putting. I was amazed. I went from a guy I was an okay putter, but I was really struggling to, everyone was asking me, yeah, what's going on? Like, how are you making all these? That's episode 60 if you want to learn more about it and check out tour read. But Cooper saw it in person when I was caddying for him at the USAM. We made
USAM qualifier, first of all.
USAM qualifier.
Did not play in the US Amateur this year.
Thank you. Good
but we tried.
On my parade, bro.
I was just a backstory. I hadn't been playing all year. When I did play, I did not putt very well. Did not putt very well when I played. I did some work previous to that qualifier, but I was like, Daniel, you got this new system. I'm going to let you read all the putts, and we're going to see how it goes. And what was it? Okay, first hole I 2-putted. Second hole I made a 100-foot putt.
I know.
Second hole I made a 100-foot putt. That actually happened.
That made me feel so. And that one too. Again, Cooper makes a 100-foot putt. We have it on video, and we're going to release that video at some point in time soon with the entire qualifier, letting you guys see our process. Because I think for a guy who works as an attorney all the time, and for a guy who didn't play golf at all that year, which was Cooper, to get to the point where we were right in it to get into the USAM, I was super impressed with us, because there's a lot of guys in college who play golf all the time and weren't anywhere nearby. And I think Cooper's good, but I think it came down to a testament as to how we prepared, our decision making, and a little bit of luck. Because 100-footer's partially luck, but I also read it to a specific spot. I said, Cooper, here's the specific spot. You need to hit it. And it wasn't just like it's a 1-foot breaker, as if you ever had a 100-foot 1-foot breaker. It was a 8 or 10. It was
probably about 6 to 8 feet. But yeah. I think it's important, like, if you're gonna do something like Aimpoint or tour read, you better make sure that you're actually doing it right. Because a lot of the times, like, I've been using Aimpoint since high school probably, but a lot of the times I'll just get up and be like, oh, this is a 2, and then just stick my fingers out there, take 10 seconds, and just look at the putt and hit it. And it's like, well, I would be better off just looking at the putt and guesstimating it, because I was just going through the motions anyways. So tour read actually makes sure that you're okay. No, I'm actually aiming 2 inches outside of the hole. I'm not just throwing my hands up and saying that's what this is going to do.
And that's the biggest thing I've noticed. Again, I like Aimpoint, and we would have, I forget who's the Aimpoint. Is it John Graham that does a lot of the Aimpoint? I would have one of the Aimpoint guys on to talk about it. I think it's a good product. I just noticed that when I compared, I think you have to be super diligent on Aimpoint, and the trade-off with tour read is you have to be able to do math in your head, and it can be, quote unquote, a little complicated, as some people say. But if you just learn to do the math, it's not really hard. But the thing I noticed between the differences, even if we had the same percentage slope, even if we read the same percentage slope, I would say that I was much more accurate, and their variation as far as where something broke was much more significant. So they might be, an inch outside of where I thought it was, and they might be an inch and a half inside where I thought it was. And not that where I think it is is always right. But if we're using the same numbers, ostensibly we should be coming up with almost the exact same read because we have the exact same putt with the exact same numbers. There are a few different types of reads, obviously. We've talked with people about that, but it should not be that much of a disparity if we're playing a putt that rolls a foot past the hole. All right, Coop, what's the next question you had for us to go through?
Specifically, what is the number one swing tip that you remember from our interviews?
I would go, so I'm going to combine Rick Fair and James Siekman into one, which the tip with short game was do what the greats have always done, essentially. And both of them kind of said that, and they both have had their own way of like measuring and looking at it. Now we got TrackMan, we can measure these things as to what great players do. And a lot of what you're seeing the greats do are what we hear from the maestro, TrackMan maestro, Joe Mayo, kind of what he's talked about with Hovland, and that's blown up more. But that's
Just
essentially
to hit down on your chip shots.
The idea that for a while there, and there are people that stand by shallow, and I'm not necessarily. There are people.
You're anti-shallow.
I'm not anti-shallow. I just think for me, and from what I've seen, the reason behind having a very negative angle of attack is well supported, not just by the data, but by how players have historically done things. And we didn't have measuring devices at certain times, so we couldn't tell you, hey, here's how down he was. But looking at not just the results of that, but also understanding the mechanics of why that works, I think that's something that that's probably one of the biggest things that people will take away. I don't think a lot of people got that from this year, whether it was listening to our episode, whether they noticed it that well, or whether they listened to the Maestro talk or on Instagram. I don't think a lot of people took that, like we're paying enough attention to take that away. So I think that's something that people are going to pick up more on in 2024. One of the fun ones I thought we did that I want to do more of this year, the coaches corner that we did with Dr. J, Grace, and Lorenzo. That one was pretty fun.
That one was good. I wish I had as much confidence as Lorenzo. Not in a bad way, in a good way. I wish I did.
I know. I wish I had as much confidence.
I mean, he was what, like plus 3 or something? He was like plus 3 through 6 holes or something and shot like 65 to make the U.S. Amateur this past summer.
It was impressive. So for those of you who didn't watch it or listen to it, I've listened to it. It's us talking with Dr. J, Jason Novetzke, mental coach, and two of his students, Grace Wang, Lorenzo Panilli. Lorenzo's playing at Michigan State. Grace is playing at Michigan. And while it's titled Insights into Elite Junior Golf, it's really just a good thing to listen to if you are anybody who wants to get better at golf. And that's why if our last question we ask at the end of every episode is, if you go back to yourself as a junior golfer, what would you tell yourself? And the reason we ask that isn't because, we care only about junior golfers. Is because if you are a golfer that's improving at any level, essentially, but most of the time, like, you're essentially somebody's junior golfer, if you get kind of what I'm saying. Like, and so what people will go back to and tell themselves is also very helpful and insightful in order to see what you maybe should be thinking about right now, whether you're a junior golfer or not.
I think a good thing that they talk about in that episode is, and Lorenzo talks about this, is he's like, oh, well, I didn't think I really needed to see Dr. J in the first place because, like, I'm playing good golf. Why do I need to think? Why do I need to think a certain way? But he talks about how he eventually came around to that and realized, just how important the mental game is, even though it's not easily quantifiable.
Yeah, I'm with that. And I think that's something that was interesting because, again, Lorenzo had a lot of confidence and said specifically what he said. He said, I went to him and was like, wow, if you think what I think, if you think, oh, I don't need help, you are wrong. Help will help you. pretty much no matter who you are, you got to find the right help. One thing I think it'll be interesting to see from the guests we've had on this year are the college golf coaches and how they do in their respective programs. So
Gator Todd.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite episodes. I forgot about Gator Todd.
That was a fun one. I'm going to quickly run through not all the coaches, because some of the coaches are not active or not going to be active, but Jacob Cook, assistant coach at UK. We have
Daniel DeLuca.
Just picked up the assistant coach job at Belmont in Nashville.
Former assistant coach at Army, former head coach at Murray State.
Going through some more of these coaches, I'm having to scroll a little bit because I need a little bit of help to make sure I get them all. Jesse Mudd over at Lamar, top coach. I think he's going to be doing well. Chip is also McDaniel.
Chip McDaniel, yeah, assistant head coach
at UK. We had Brennan, Coach Webb on, Gator Todd on. I mean, we've had on a decent net. Corey Maggard was former coach.
At the time that we interviewed Gator, he was the assistant coach at Vanderbilt. Shortly after that, he got hired on as a head coach at University of Kentucky. So he's been there for one semester. Really excited to see what he does once he gets his own guys in there.
Yeah, and he's doing a good job, and I think he's done a good job with that program from what I've seen as far as getting guys prepared. I've heard good things about how things have gone as far as getting guys tournament ready and how he talked with us. I mean, he takes it serious and has good structure for players. And so I'm excited to see what comes out of that program. Coop, let's do a fun one. Who, if you can get one guest on this coming year, who would it be?
I want to get Lou back on.
You want to get Lou back on?
I want to get Lou back on. I feel like he has a lot of good things to say. I feel like he's been pretty active on Twitter lately. I feel like he's getting a little addicted to stirring that pot.
We'll let him know that when we talk to him. There's no one else that you have that you're hoping to get on. I like Lou.
Well, no, you said one person. I mean, I don't know. Right. There's a lot of people I'd like to get back on, but that's just the first person that came to mind.
Okay, your Christmas wish list for Santa. Your top one person you would want to get on that we haven't had on yet. Maybe that makes
that we haven't had on yet.
Yeah,
Tiger. Oh, sorry, Rory.
I can't tell if you're being serious or not.
I'm being serious. You said okay. Christmas wish list. I want Tiger.
Okay.
We can be his new sponsor.
What do you think what's one question you would ask him?
How did you come up with your strategy? How did you come up with the way that you played the game? Because as we all know, Scott Fawcett formulated his product around how you played the game of golf. And I mean, was that just intuitive, or did you go about it a certain way? Did you study certain things? I want to know how you had the ability to basically have the perfect strategy as far as we're concerned.
My guess is, I mean, I don't know if he knows the answer, because for a lot of great players in any category, there's a lot of things that are just intuitive to them. And that's one that I kind of wonder if that was just intuitive to him, or he kind of learned it, but not that he has a specific strategy. He just goes by feel. And it just so happens, one, that his feel is pretty darn good. Number two, he's one of the best ball strikers in the world. And so that helps magnify the effect of having a really darn good feel.
He's pretty smart too.
Yeah. One thing I would ask him is, when you're chipping, do you look at a spot or do you not look at a
That's
spot?
Perfect. Oh my God, that's perfect.
I actually want to know. So for those of you who don't, I'm actually going to, I'll tweet this out.
We'll pull it. No, we'll pull it up and put it.
We'll have Exxon put it in. Okay. We'll have our editor, who's awesome, put it in. And it's this video. And if you're listening on audio, you'll hear it on audio. Essentially, I have back-to-back clips of Tiger saying, when I'm chipping, I chip to a spot. And then when Another one where he says, "Oh, I never look at a spot when I'm chipping.
I never look at a
can't
spot when I'm
I
chipping."
can't look at it."
And I'm more of a spot chipper. So I like to have landing spots where I want the ball to land. And to me, this gives me a good visual to practice at. I don't ever see a spot.
You
Really?
look at the hole, right? So that's
I don't know how to hit to a spot.
Yeah. So I reckon if you hit to a spot, you'd pull up short every single time, probably.
That's one thing I learned, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean,
I feel everything like that. I take in the whole environment.
yeah, that's good.
It kind of reminds me of when he said, "Scotty,
he
when I'm
doesn't
hitting
take
my best, I
divots.
don't take divots." It reminds me of
I
that.
can
can't
never
tell-
trust anything else that comes out of his mouth in those type of situations anymore after seeing those 2 clips.
I don't know if he does it on purpose for fun or what he does. I'm sure some of it's just messing around, having fun with people.
Like Scotty's just still befuddled about that.
Yeah, I would lose sleep. If I was going with one person we could get on this year, I still like to have Will Zalatoris on. I think that would be a really good one. We'll see if we can pull that off.
If I'm really
But-
saying like things that could happen, I mean, okay, I said Tiger, that was funny, but I'd like to have Patrick Cantlay on. I think he's really interesting, and just the way that he's able to focus on the golf course is just insane. And
I would also
I'd like
have
to speak to
Bryson
him.
on. Will Zalatoris and Bryson would be my top 2.
Bryson.
Because he's super interesting. We've done things like
You've
him
met
or
Bryson.
because of him.
You've
I met him at the 2015 USAM. I met him. I did. We met. We had the scoring tent on the North Course. He had some sort of. I mean, that's actually one question I would ask him. What was going on with the scoring there? Because I remember walking up to him. I was caddying
You
for
wouldn't ask him
Ashton.
that, dude.
Yes, I would, because I want to know what it was. He was like, "Yeah, I have some sort of scoring issue. They want me back at this tent." But I'm saying
He would
kind of chill.
remember,
He was a
wouldn't
little. He would, because he was a little hyper about it. It was like he was wired. It was pretty good. Other interesting things that I think that as far as guests on here, I mean, I'm going to hit a few. Caleb Surratt, heck of a
Surratt's
player,
incredible.
heck of a player, super
Makes
interesting
it
to
at
talk
4
to.
a.m. every day.
We're going to have a few more top AMs on this year who are what people might say are in his like category in that,
I want to have
PGA
Miles
Tour
Russell on. Have you seen him?
No.
He's 14 years old. He's won like every major junior tournament. He's 14. He won the junior players.
When I was 14, I think I had 2 perfect seasons in a row in NCAA football 2008. About to brag or anything.
What was I doing?
Yeah,
when
that'd
I
have
was
been right. That'd have been
14?
pretty close. I might have been playing I don't think I had anything after football 2006. So might have been NCAA 2000 football 2006. So still not the worst.
I mean, that's pretty solid, honestly.
It's not bad. Sasha McKenzie, if you haven't listened to that one, check that one
He
out. I
broke
think that
me.
one. Cooper did feel bad during that
He
one.
broke my brain.
That one took a little bit of effort, not because
He's smart. He's a genius.
he is ridiculously smart
actually
and
is a
he's
genius.
well equipped to answer questions.
And he's a lab.
Say that again.
He has a lab. He's a mad
He does have a
scientist.
I thought you were saying he was made in a lab. I was like, well, that might be true.
He could be. He could actually be.
I don't know for sure, but it's possible. Definitely. Trying to think of anyone else on here that we're gonna get more fitness guys on. We've had
Yeah, we
lot
like
of
the
good-
fitness guys.
we've
I want
killed
to talk
it
to
on-
Ben Shear more about how ice cream's better for you than rice.
Oh, gosh, I was telling my wife about that the other day. Now we're having something. I was like, could we just have polenta instead of rice? I like polenta. For those of you who don't know what it is, it's like grits, but it's like Spanish grits. It's just a little fancier. So my bad for stunning on everybody. We've
Don't
talked a lot about
apologize.
we've talked about everything except for professional golfers, pretty much. I'm excited.
Well, we talked
to
about
see,
LeBritz.
True. We're excited to see how Tier does.
Teeter.
this year.
Teeter. I was just talking to Ashton about that last night. Like,
Mhm.
honestly, how insane is it that he got back to the tour? It kind of doesn't make sense, honestly. Because if you play with Teeter, I mean, don't get me wrong. He's an incredible golfer. But he hits it about 290. Doesn't do anything too crazy. And he'll go out and shoot 68 or 69. But he does that every single day. And he did that for a straight season on the Korn Ferry Tour. And that's what it takes.
Gets the ball in the hole, baby. That is what it takes.
So Joe Mushong is going to be caddying for him. We had him on the podcast as well.
Good.
That's
for those of you who don't get it. That's from Jocko. Joe loves Jocko. And one of the things, whenever anything happens in your life, whether good or bad, Jocko just says, "Good." Your tire went flat. Good. Gives you a chance to test out your handiness. Failed a test. Good. Lets you know where you are.
I made a double bogey. Good.
Yes, there you go, Cooper. There you go. Now we're back on track. All right, I think we've pretty much gone through all the things as far as recapping things, etc. that I really wanted to hit. Is there anything you wanted to hit in particular?
I got a question for you. What's something that you hope can be fixed in your golf game this season through the tournament code?
Can I only pick one?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me too much.
I want to shoot 18 every round.
Then you would finally win golf.
I would beat it. Okay.
One thing. I feel like
I remember I was talking to somebody and I was like, you think it honestly, if humans played golf for an infinite amount of time, somebody would shoot 18? And he was like, yeah, 18. Yeah. I mean, somebody will shoot 18 under. And I was like, no, 18. Like, you have to have a 1 on every single hole.
Over a long enough period of time, yes.
Under controlled circumstances.
Yes. If you think about it, though, it's only, what is it? What are the odds of hole 1? A 1 in 10 million? I would prefer it on a par 3 course. If we start talking driver,
you just have to have a cart path. You just have to have a cart path that goes down the middle of the fairway. It's true.
We're losing the course. I would say, honestly, I think I'd like to talk more about short game.
Okay.
I think that's what I would like to talk about. Putting, so here's controversial. Whoa, we didn't even hit top controversial, which we'll hit right after this.
Bingo.
One of the more controversial things that I think was said on this podcast, there's a few. So Stuart Morgan, episode 79, which I'm not disagreeing with or agreeing with, but episode 79 said that essentially slow motion work probably isn't that good. And then another motor learning guy. Yeah, dang, these motor learning guys are controversial, man. Episode 67.
Are you talking about how Greg Rose said that chiropractors aren't quacks? That's pretty controversial.
You stop that. You're going to get us canceled. If anyone listened to this far, they're getting us canceled for that. Episode 67, Luke Benoit said that putting isn't hard. And that putting is pretty easy. And honestly,
it's difficult.
Actually, that's a controversial one. I'm inclined to semi-agree with, depending on how we mean those words.
I mean, sure, it's not hard, okay? But, like, it's obviously hard.
Here's what I'll say. If you had the perfect read on every putt, if you knew the exact read on every putt for a putt that went a foot past the hole, I bet that the difference between putters would not be that great. And I bet that a beginning putter, like a guy who never putted before, you give him a couple hours, I bet he would be not indistinguishable, but pretty close to or not super distinguishable from someone who'd been playing a long time.
It's the most randomized part of the game.
Yes. Well, I don't know if I'm going to agree with that or not. I have to think.
Putting's like a carnival game.
Why? Because you put it through the clown mouth and down the hill?
No, because it doesn't take that much physical skill and you're just hitting a ball into a target. It's like throwing ring on a whatever ring toss at the fair.
Yeah, but they jimmy those.
The same
games up.
thing. Putting's
They
pretty
do.
jimmied.
It's actually where the fun fact. That's where I believe the phrase "close but no cigar" comes from. Carnival games, you get a cigar. Back when we used to let kids smoke. Putting, I'm not super concerned about picking stuff up. Same thing. I have swing instructors. Their swing instructor for full swing. So short game's really the one area that I'm more interested in. Probably that. Maybe fit. I could go fitness too. I could go fitness. I'll take fitness for 500, Alex.
I really, really, and it's actually, it comes and goes. It comes and goes, but I struggle with the shorties sometimes on the greens.
Oh, thought you meant girls.
Struggle. Yes. That's one way to put it. I struggle with 3-footers.
That's true.
And
I have a video of it.
I really want to. And I think this actually, well, maybe it actually was fixed, honestly, because when we had Dr. McCabe on, he talked about how he was working with a pitcher who struggled with the yips. And the way that he fixed it was, he was like, when I feel my hands shaking or my mind racing or
I say
just the
good.
fear, he doesn't actually do that because it's not good.
Oh.
He attributes it to an outside agent named Bob. He said, "Oh, Bob's here again. Bob's the guy with the yips, not me. It's Bob." And he'll go step away. I think he had like a trigger to get rid of it. It was like, I think he was like wiping his hands with his towel. It's like, "Oh, Bob's here again." And then when he steps away, he comes back. He leaves Bob back there. And so that's, I think, what I'm going to do. Because honestly, it shouldn't be that hard to make 3-footer.
You should never miss a putt inside 3 feet. Is what people might say to you.
Who would
who
say
haven't
that?
Missed a putt. No comment.
Okay. I'll definitely improve my score if I never miss one of those.
The funny thing about missing 3-footers is, so just so you guys know, we were filming Cooper's USAM qualifier. Felt super weird to do it. We were filming it. We filmed. It was a 2-day qualifier because of the rain delay, and we were on hole number. Had to be like 30, maybe hole number 29 or something like that.
It was hole 12.
It was hole 29 or 28 and
30. Hole 30. Not
Cooper's dad was recording it for us, and then Cooper missed a 3-footer, maybe even less. And then at that point, his dad.
It was 2.5.
At that point, his dad was concerned. I love you, Danny, if you're listening to this. At that point, his dad was concerned that he was making Cooper nervous. And so he said, "All right, I'm going to stop recording." I was like, "All right, man, that's fine." And then Cooper proceeded to make an incredible par on the next hole. And then I think he made a birdie, then a bogey, and then finished eagle to, let's not worry about the specifics, made birdie eagle to make second alternate. So
we got the eagle putt. That's it.
And all we recorded out of that was an eagle putt.
And here's a good lesson from that is I typically don't look at leaderboards, but on the 35th hole, Daniel's like, "You want to know where you stand?"
And the reason I said that to him is because I was concerned. I was like, I think he might think he's out of it, and he is not out of it at all.
I would say, like, whenever I was playing college golf, I was petrified to look at leaderboards. I mean, usually we have like the live scoring on our phone. I was like, I do not want to see where I stand. I'm a no leaderboard watching guy, and I can never look at the leaderboard or else it'll mess me up. It's like, now that I've, still play some tournaments, I'll like say, I'm generally not going to care about the score, but it can help sometimes. And Daniel's like, well, you need to finish birdie to have a chance at anything. And so, hit the shot up there to 6 or 7 feet, and he tour read it for me. Made the birdie. Eagle the next hole. It was good.
That's how it goes. Alrighty. I think as opposed to talk about controversial, who's had the most controversial stuff, let's do that really quickly. You got one?
I can't get over the Rice, dude.
The Rice, yeah.
I can't get over it.
Ben
I can't
Shear
get
said
over it
essentially Rice
because I go to Chipotle after I work out and I feel amazing. I feel like it's like the best thing I could be eating. I just can't be told that if I went to Andy's, it would be better for me. I'm not going to be told that.
Well, you could be wrong. Because one of the guys works with the top tour players, and the other guy's you.
He's smart.
Well, he's measured it, and you're just going off a feel. So there's that.
You actually believe him?
I'm saying that you haven't measured it, and he has data. So take that. You can't just say, "Oh, I feel like," it's like saying, "Oh, I feel like aiming at the pin is better." Prove it. If someone's proved the opposite, prove otherwise. I don't think you have anything to prove otherwise.
Every bodybuilder ate rice. We can go. We can continue.
I just don't know what it means.
I just proved it, but we can continue.
Yeah, I don't think you proved it. Most controversial. I think I probably already said the ones that I thought were most controversial or made me believe some of the most controversial, which was actually, I'll say most controversial again. Dr. Luke Benoit coming in with this one. Foam balls. Using foam balls to practice.
I hated that take.
I like it. I like it. And the most controversial one that I don't disagree with that came from him was that the backswing doesn't matter.
No, that one's fine. I just think that him saying that it's actually better to practice with a foam ball because what he said was where you hit it on the club face doesn't matter. And I just can't get behind that. Because the reason he specifically uses foam balls is because you can't tell where on the face you hit it.
Yep.
It hurts to me.
Understood. Alrighty. Well, if you've listened to us this far, then you must like us. And if you must like us, you are a sicko if you listen to us this far. And if you must like us, and if you're a sicko, then therefore it follows. You're probably already following us on Instagram and Twitter. But if you're not, we're on Instagram at The Tournament Code and on Twitter at Tournament Code. And you're probably already following us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. But if you're not, please like and subscribe, or subscribe and leave a rating. Every 5-star review helps us.
That's literally the only way we can make money because we refuse to put advertisements on this.
I actually don't know how that makes us money if they leave 5 stars, but it's nice.
No, it contributes. It contributes to it because the more ratings and views you get, the closer we are to monetizing our YouTube channel.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that is true. That is true. We do generally not take advertising, and we're still in that position where we're not taking on advertisers. But if you like us on YouTube, it helps us make money. And someday, we can make 4 cents an episode with YouTube ads. And that's what we came here to do. So we appreciate you taking the time to join us and dive in deeper to what it takes to play elite tournament golf.